the show. This is where I talk to mental health professionals, talk to advocates, I talk to people about their own experience. Nothing is off the table there. And I become that bridge where we're having conversations, and they're like, people who have been in my community for long enough know they're about anything. Really, they're really about it because everything somehow ties to mental health.
Welcome back to Digital Games, where we explore how games make a difference. Today I am joined by the Marie Shanley, aka M, aka Mxiety. Marie is a mental health advocate, talk show host, and Twitch partner. She has conducted over 100 interviews with mental health experts and has raised over $10,000 for mental health charities and is changing the conversation around mental health and gaming. Marie, that was not rehearsed at all. I don't know what you're talking about. That was right off the cuff, perfect, just like last time. Thanks for coming on. How are you today?
Perfect. I'm good. I'm good. I'm glad to be here. I'm excited to talk. Yeah, let's go.
So, I'm really so excited to talk to you today. For anyone who has not checked out your stream on Twitch, can you give us a bit of background as to what would you expect on a typical Mxiety show?
A lot of a lot of silliness, a lot of like silly seriousness is what I call it, because the topics are serious, but I don't take myself seriously, and I
I mean,
do
I think
think
if
that.
you go to your channel and just watch the trailer, it's you dressed up
Yeah,
in a Stitch costume. So that's what I'm
yeah,
gaining.
yeah. That's pretty good. Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's it. When I need to, I dress up in a Stitch costume. Listen, when the community calls for it.
Yeah, when you got to be
And
Stitch, be Stitch.
exactly. And I mean, like, let's be honest, Lilo and Stitch is very good for your mental health. Let's be real here.
There's
Um,
a song from Lilo and Stitch that has recently come up on our Disney playlist that I listen to with my daughter, and let's be honest, myself, because Disney music rocks.
right. Because,
Um,
like, come on. Yeah.
and it's like I don't know, like what, but it's like the song that they dance to, like the Hawaiian song they dance
Yeah,
to, and
yeah.
it's so good.
Yeah, all of it. I mean, yeah, I'm obsessed with the soundtrack. I'm obsessed with Elvis. My sister raised me, so I related to Lilo and Stitch very closely as a growing up, and
Yeah,
it was very, very important to me. So yeah, to be able to become Stitch and then tell people I'm giving them hugs feels pretty good.
so
But that's
important.
not all we do. That's not all we do.
You mean
We
there's
have
more?
yeah, sure. We have pretty awesome conversations with mental health professionals, other advocates, people in the mental health field, uh, like in general, people who are willing to share their story. So that happens on Tuesdays, and then on Wednesdays we usually do open discussions or like spillover of interviews. And then Fridays we game and talk about mental health. And I just recently started a segment called "Will You Carry Me?"
Yeah.
And that is gaming. Like, somebody teaches me how to play video games, like a game that they like, while carrying me,
Oh my
because I'm
God.
not that good at it. But the whole point is we also talk about like mental health while we do that, and it's
Yeah.
difficult to do, to balance all of that, but it's so fun. It's been great, and the community's loved it. So yeet.
Wow. That is so amazing. That is such an important stream. I love the Will You Carry Me. I think that's a great addition. I'm excited to get into it more, to get into everything more with the mental health experts. I want to
Let's
hear
go.
about
Yeah.
that. Before I do, I want to thank everyone for sticking around despite some technical difficulties. Thanks for coming to Digital Doc Interviews, where we talk to people using video games to help have a positive impact on the world, people like M. Remember, you can watch Digital Doc Interviews live on Twitch, where you can participate in the show. But if you can't watch live, no worries. You can make your way to youtube.com/digitaldocgames, where you will find all of our interviews, Let's Plays, and impact reviews, or check your go-to podcast services. Remember, if you believe in the power of gaming, hit that follow or subscribe button. Your support means so much to me. Welcome to the Care Team. So, Em, let's start with a little bit more of your background. You now are a Twitch partner, um, someone who, on a nightly basis, depending on when you're streaming, is gathering an incredible crowd, an incredible community that wants to engage in these conversations on
Mhm.
mental health. Where did this begin? How did you get interested in becoming Mxiety?
The easiest answer to that, and the quickest answer to that, is I decided that I wanted to talk about mental health, And I didn't want to do it on YouTube because I wanted to be able to have these conversations live. I felt like there wasn't enough science. There was a lot of people sharing what their story, their mental health journey, and there's a lot of people on the science side being like, "This is how it is, and these are your chemicals and stuff, neurotransmitters." And I felt like there wasn't anybody in the middle when I went looking for information. Those are the two things that I found. So I found the here's what's happening in your brain while you're depressed, and the I'm really depressed, and I don't like that, and that sucks, and blah blah blah. And I was like, if we could join in the middle, I would
Totally.
love to have conversations with mental health professionals who can explain here's what's happening in your brain, and then me be on the other side being like, and that sucks. So you have the two perspectives married there. So that's the short story. Do
Right.
you want the longer version?
I mean, well, let me riff off that for a second. I mean,
Go,
I
let's go.
think that what you said is so wise and important. And really what it does is it makes you I talk about the care team here on this channel, right? And when someone joins the digital doc games, they're part of the care team, and what that means is you're part of the conversation, and through that conversation, I don't care what letters you have or don't have after your name, if you're an MD, if you're a PhD, if you're a nurse, if you're whatever, you are part of the healing process, right? So I think that is incredible that you picked up on that as well, and became that person to be an incredibly important part of the care team, really.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah,
I'd like to think that.
I mean, and I think it's totally valid. So yeah, so let's dive a little bit deeper. I mean, I know that you've talked about it on some of your blog posts on your channel and past interviews. I think, am I right? One of the things that sort of inspired you to do this and realize that there is a problem here is actually your own sort of interaction with the healthcare system as far as the mental health system goes.
Yeah, I was at a job that was slowly just completely degrading my mental health,
Right.
and I came to a place where I was like, I I feel like mental illness, I feel like depression and anxiety just took my career from me because I had a very public panic attack at work, and they're like, you should probably consider taking a break and not working anymore because
Wow.
it's not working for you. And I was like, okay, cool. So I think this is it. Like I was, without going like too deep into it, like I was ready to check out. I was like, I guess
Right.
this is it. This is I the mental illness has taken my career from me, the thing that I thought I was set to do for the rest of my life. So that's it.
Hmm.
And then I was like, well, I've always wanted to write. I've always wanted to talk and be earnest with people. What if I finally did that? What if I gave that a shot?
Wow.
And Here we are. And
Yeah.
it's almost 3.5 years later, and it's been pretty amazing. And I've gone back to work. I figured out what I want to do for my career. I figured out how to marry my passions, and
Right.
here we are. Yeah, a much better place. Much better place.
Right. Yeah. Liz Blizz in the chat says leaving my high anxiety inducing job was the best decision I ever made for
Hmm.
her.
Hmm.
Um, and that's not something that's easy to do, right?
Hmm.
And incredible that you were able to have that self realization at that point and actually be able to propel yourself forward to where you are now. I could see how that's not only incredible for you, but inspiring for other people, on your channel and those who meet you too. So that's really awesome. And I'm curious because obviously I've had my experience with the mental health system through, on the other side of things, being on the
Sure.
healthcare side of things,
Right.
rotating
Right. Right.
through, my psychiatry rotation in medical school. Um, and, I'd love to have a conversation about that because my experience with, everyone says the mental health system is so broken in America,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
And I really didn't know what that meant until I experienced it firsthand by working in the mental health system. And I think what you touched on before about this, focus sort of on the neurotransmitters and the science of things and medications, all of which is extremely important.
Right.
Um,
Absolutely.
but it doesn't in many settings in the healthcare system, it doesn't get translated to the human way, right? And I saw so much of people just, coming into these facilities essentially for X amount of time until, they're ready to be discharged, and then they just go back into the world. So, I don't know. Did you experience of those, any of those experiences with your interaction with the healthcare system?
Absolutely. I actually don't get to tell the story a lot, so I'm really, really excited to be able to share it with you. And I think people in my community will be like, finally, something we haven't heard. So thank you for
There we go.
asking.
Digital Doc Games exclusive right here.
It's true. It's true. So I when I was in college, that was the first time I kind of had a really big breakdown, and my now husband, then boyfriend, found me in my room shaking back and forth and rocking back and forth in a little ball, and he was like, I'm gonna go take you to the counseling office. And I was
Yeah.
like, oh, this isn't normal. This is just what I do when I get really overwhelmed. And he's like, no, we're gonna go to the counseling office. So we went there and I started talking to a therapist, and I didn't really get it. Like I was like, I'm just supposed to be here because all I wanted to do, honestly, looking back at it, that poor kid, all she wanted to do was just cry.
Right.
Cry
Right.
all the time. I wanted somebody to hear me, to validate me, to tell me that I was going to be okay. And I remember I overwhelmed the crap out of that therapist. It's not like she was not incompetent. She was great, but she just because I would just come in and start crying, and then I would leave the appointment, and I was still crying, and I'd calm myself down and like turn it off because that's what I was used to doing. Turn it off and leave and walk out and be like, I'm gonna go function for the rest of the day.
Yeah.
And one day I came to her and I was like, I'm gonna end my life, and she's like, all right, I need to know how serious you are about this because we need to implement protocol. If you
Sure.
are very serious, if you feel like you're a danger to yourself, we need to get you to a hospital where they can take care of you. And I was like, I really feel like I feel hopeless and just anything to make this stop. Just make
Right.
this stop. And she's like, okay, cool. We're gonna send you to a facility and they're gonna help you out because they'll have the conversation literally was they'll have a psychiatrist on staff who will be able to prescribe you medication that'll hold you over until you can see the psychiatrist at the college because
Mm.
she only took patients like once a month or something like that. And
Schedules.
I was like, okay, good plan, good plan. First of all, there's a lot to be said about like the lack of a psychiatrist, the fact that like, oh, I don't know what to do. I'm sending you off to. So this then wasn't communicated properly to the ambulance and between the ambulance and the people at the facility because I came there and they're like, oh, she's a harm to herself and she's here against her will. And I heard that and I was
Hmm.
like, no, I'm not. And
Wow.
they're like, no, like don't worry about it. And but that set off everything else because there's a totally different protocol. If you come there on your own volition versus you come there because
Absolutely.
you're a danger to yourself and socially and everything. There's two different things. Or being forcefully placed into treatment. Two different, very different interactions you'll have with doctors, which
Right.
in its own right is also a problem. Not that they're different, but how it's handled is problematic.
Well, I'll
But
say that, in life and certainly in medicine, we put things into buckets, right? And we
yeah,
need to
yeah,
because there's too much content in the world. We need to create schemas for our all this information. So what happens, at least in my experience, in the healthcare setting in the hospital, is we have to put certain patients into certain buckets, and we need to
right,
do this because that's good. That helps us think, organize how we think and think about
right,
disease states and all these things. So you've nailed it on the head, right? Two buckets: a patient who wants to be there and a patient who doesn't want to be there. The
yeah,
problem is you're not just dealing with buckets; you're dealing with individuals inside those buckets.
right,
So
right.
when something doesn't add up, it takes a good and caring and sensitive medical provider to say, whoa, 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 I got to stop my autopilot drive right now and recognize that this needs a little bit more, you know, I don't know, detailed personal
Right.
attention.
There's more story here that I'm getting, but yeah,
And
yeah,
that I think what you're saying is that's hard to, and certainly on a patient perspective, frustrating when it's like, no,
yes.
no, pay attention to me.
Yes. Yes, it's well, I'm here and I'm a person, and why am I not being treated as a person? But no, the thing that I said is I'm not for forced treatment. That's where I so that's its own thing, and I understand when people are literally dangerous, but oftentimes people are placed in treatment literally against their will just because the therapist that they're dealing with or the loved ones that they're dealing with are like, I don't know what to do with this, go here.
Right,
And
right.
that's not an ideal scenario, but all of that taken aside, so I went in there and it wasn't communicated that I was there on my own will. And so they're like, okay, so we're gonna hold you for a few days. And I was like, I literally have an exam tomorrow. I wasn't planning on being here for. They were like, well, because you're hysterical and you're here against your own. And I was crying a lot, but I
Sure.
was like very scared and confused about what was going on. And I was very lucky they let my now husband, the boyfriend, stay with me. And so as this is all going on, I get like more worked up, obviously, because now I'm like freaked out because I'm like, I'm like, this is happening. This is a real thing that's happening. I'm in a mental health facility. What is going to happen next? This is terrifying. They're like, yeah, and the doctor's not coming until like midnight. So we're just going to hold you and observe you. And I was
Right.
like, I don't want to be, this is not what I'm here for. This is nothing like I was promised. So there are a few things that happened there that were miscommunications that made my experience awful. Like
Yeah,
it was
and
terrible. And I was
it
already in a not a great place to be handling it, right?
absolutely right. And this shouldn't be the experience we have when someone makes the right call like you did and said, "Hey, I recognize that I need help," which is not an easy thing to say out loud or to say to yourself. And after that step, everything should be a positive experience from there on to if nothing else, reward you and pat you on the back for taking that difficult step. I see in the chat, there's people sharing stories of their own, experiences with the mental health facilities and or hospitals, and it seems like obviously you're not the only person who's had an experience like this. So I'm happy that we're talking about this on my channel, which there's medical people. We
You
have
can get the
medic
other side.
have the other side, and this is something that I would love in training and medical training in medical school. And it happens sometimes, but to have more of these conversations and speak to patients more and understand that patient experience. So thank you, Em, for sharing that. That I think
Aw, I
that's
don't get
really
to share it
important.
a lot, like I said. So that's really thank you for listening.
No,
Thank
of
you for and
course.
I hope I presented it in a way that was as balanced as it can be now that that was 7 years ago.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I think you did, and right. So that was a little bit of time ago, and now you're doing this Twitch streaming. Did you? Well, let's start with this. I'm curious. How did you come to Twitch? I mean, obviously, when most people think of Twitch, they think it's a place for games. So,
Sure.
how did you say, "Hey, people are going to want to come on and listen to topics of mental health on this gaming streaming platform"?
Oh, I totally didn't think they would. So
Okay.
that's probably what gave me the balls to do it, or the ovaries, or whatever you want.
Whatever
But
body part you have
whatever,
it.
yeah, whatever gives you your oomph.
Yeah,
But yeah, so I was like, well, I don't want to do YouTube because first of all, I feel like there's a ton of content out on YouTube already. There were brilliant therapists doing a really like I would watch Katie Morton, right, and be like, she's or Caddy. I don't know how to pronounce it, but it's
okay.
Katy. That's why.
TI. Well, either one.
Yeah,
Caddy, Katie.
Yeah,
We
Katie
know who we're
Morton. So
talking about.
she was a great therapist. The Psych Show, awesome show. So it, there was so much good content out there on YouTube that I felt like I was like, well, they're already doing a good job doing that,
Sure.
so that's not needed. So how can I do this? And I was like, well, I kind of want to talk about this with people like live. I want to find other people and create a space where people can talk about this.
Yeah.
Um, and so Twitch came to mind. And so the first thing I did was go on Twitch because at the time it was like slowly progressing as like Twitch is the platform that everybody's on that's not on YouTube because YouTube sucks. Like, we go between like Twitch sucks and YouTube sucks and Twitch sucks.
Right.
So
Internet
um,
problems.
it's internet, you're right. Not. I'm also don't want to downplay some of the Twitch problems are pretty bad. I don't want anybody to be like she's not taking
Fair,
stuff
fair.
seriously. I do. But at the time I was like, so this platform's growing and people talk live on it. That's really cool. So I started watching this dude named Lucid Fox. I still watch him. I call him my Twitch dad because he literally was like this window into. So this is really cool. Like he's playing games while he's doing it,
Yeah,
but the thing that I'm sticking around for is the conversations he's having while he's playing these games. Like
right.
he's
That's
talking about
right.
stuff in the world. He's talking about like how his day was, his wife, his dog, like all these things. And I was like, this is okay. All right, now I got to come up with something. And so not a lot of people know, but originally I decided I was going to craft. I've
Okay.
stopped crafting since for two reasons. One, and this is not for compliments, this is just like an objective. I'm not good at it. That's okay. I'm good at other stuff. And then the second thing is I would get so distracted and wrapped up in talking about mental health that I
Yeah,
would like stop doing what I was doing and
right.
start just talking. And then it would be like end of showtime, and I'd be like, oh, I didn't make the thing. So I felt like kind of like a fraud being in crafting when I wasn't really crafting. I was just talking, and I was like,
Right.
so I think I'm just gonna do more talking. And so that's what I did, and that's how I came to decide that like I was going to do. At the time it was IRL. Now it's just chatting. I was just going
Sure.
to talk to people. Um, and originally I was like, well, I want to show people that they're not alone with these issues,
Yeah.
right? So how do you do that? Well, you interview other people who are dealing with these issues and
Mm-hmm.
have them come on and bravely share their story. And so people know, oh, I'm not alone. This person's also dealt with this and this and this and this.
Right.
And originally, I was super, super lucky because it was very close friends who would come. This is wild now in person, in
Ah, what
person.
is that?
Yeah, I don't know. Uh, so they would come in person and like talk, and they would tell about their story, or they would call in and stuff. And so eventually I got to a point where I was like, I have to talk to more professionals because I want to balance this out. And so that's the show. Like it just slowly,
Yeah,
baby,
yeah,
baby, baby steps, it grew into its own, into what it is today, where I feel like there's still changes that can be made, but
sure.
I feel like this is the show. This is where I talk to mental health professionals, talk to advocates, I talk to people about their own experience. You know, nothing is off the table there. And I become that bridge where we're having conversations, and they're like people who have been in my community for long enough know they're about anything. Really, they're really about it because everything somehow ties to mental health. So there's
Definitely.
not something like yes, it's mental health, and I call myself a mental health talk show host, but it's not like all we talk about is like depression, anxiety, borderline, bipolar. Like that's not always we talk about. Like, man, today stuff really sucked, and I just want to be okay with that. You know, like
Absolutely.
so. Um, and yeah, and that's how it came to be. That was a long answer,
No,
but
no,
you got your answer.
that was perfect. And yeah, I mean, I love that idea of that there's it's more than just talking about like mental health, mental health, mental health, but it's these
Yeah.
topics that end up encompassing that. And that's something that I've
Mhm.
learned through my own channel that, we talk about health, mental health is a part of that, but
Mhm.
community is a part of that. Having fun playing games is a part of that. Like there's so many
Absolutely.
aspects to health that you can
Yeah.
capture on a stream. Um, so the stream obviously, so it sounds like it kind of started with you talking to people about shared experiences, and it continues to be that, and grew also to include experts. Um, it is a resource for so many people, for everyone who watches. Have you
Mhm.
found that it is also similarly a resource for you? Is it therapeutic for you to do these streams?
Oh my gosh, so therapy. Well, it's not even doing the streams that's therapeutic. It's accountability
Yeah,
from like I there's a group of people that depend on me Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Fridays to come on and be there and talk to them.
right,
And that's not in a way that like, oh, I have to do it because they depend on me and they're helpless without me. Like that's not in that way. It's more in a I get to do this. Like
yeah,
I
yeah,
get to talk to a group of people about mental health. That's really cool.
yeah,
And I get to see how I help people. I get to see people come to a place where they're okay with therapy. I get to see people come to a place where they're okay with taking medication. Like
right,
that's amazing. When it
right.
comes to my mental health, it's helped on several. It's given me a purpose, right? And that always helps with your mental health. It's given me accountability because I have an audience that'll be like, you're depressed. You should skip an episode and take care of that." And I'm like, I've just been crying for 3 days." They're like, "Yeah, yeah, you're depressed. You should take a day off."
It works
And
both ways.
it works both. It totally works both ways, and that's something that I'm slowly learning to be better and better about presenting that in a mature, like, just honest. Here's the facts kind of way,
Right.
without because I was worried for a long time that people would be like, "Oh, look, she's just trying to use mental health as a way to get people to feel sorry for her." And I'm like, first of all, I never want anybody to feel sorry for me,
Right.
and I definitely, like, I want to just be able to talk about that. And the fact that some people think that that's why I talk about it is a stigma on its own.
They probably
But
haven't really spent too much time in your stream if that's the case, is what I'm
probably not.
guessing. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
probably not.
Yeah.
But I also, I strive to create a space where, like, mental health is a topic. It's
Right.
not the only topic. It's not everything and anything, but it also is at the same time.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it has to, I feel like, people come to streams that are specialized for a purpose, with a purpose. And I want to create, like, my goal was to create a space, and I've created that for myself and I've created that for others, where it's just, you can just be human.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think I think that's the best way that I've ever
And in
summarized
like
it.
post 2020, like is that not
Yeah.
just what everybody needs? Like
Yeah.
just a place to be themselves and to complain about what they want to complain about, and it's all so valid.
Yep.
So that's really awesome. Yeah, I was lurking in your stream last night, and you were
Oh.
talking with about social
Mhm.
media and the pressures of social
Mhm.
media, and that's, I mean, that could be a whole other conversation
Oh
in
my
its
gosh.
own. We won't go too
Yeah.
much into it, but like as a content creator, I never really cared about social before, but it's like this
Right.
thing that I love being a
It's
content
huge.
creator, and I love streaming, and I love putting on YouTube. But yeah, when I put that tweet up and it's not getting likes and then an hour's ticking and another, I'm like, oh
Yeah,
no.
and you're like, it eats you, and you have to learn how to compartmentalize that and pull it away from yourself, that it's not you,
Right.
depersonalize that. Yeah, there's a lot. There's social media is,
It's a beast. It's the Wild West.
yeah.
It makes no sense. To anyone who
Yep.
tells you it makes sense, they're lying. Don't listen to them. That's
I feel like it makes sense to me. If you asked me to explain it, I'd be like, no. But, like, in my head, there's like a very complicated, formula of it. Like,
right.
A equals C equals Y, and sometimes D, but
We'll get a
okay.
whiteboard and we'll start drawing it out, and
Yeah,
you could
yeah, yeah.
educate us.
It's like the Winona Ryder gif of just like,
I love it.
is
That's
that
right. That's right. So, Em, I want to talk about games a little bit.
yeah.
So you were telling me before we went live
Yeah,
that
yeah, yeah.
you didn't really get so much into gaming until you started, other than dabbling here and there, until you started Mxiety. So
Mhm.
what has gaming start to mean to you as a Twitch partner?
So gaming, the first game that really grabbed me. So I don't know if you've ever watched girlfriend reviews,
I
but,
love
like,
girlfriend reviews.
yeah, I kind of felt like I lived through that. So for those who don't know, it was like being the observer of somebody playing a game really well,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And so, like, that's kind of how I felt since I met my now husband. Like, I would just watch him play game. I was like, that's so cool. And it's like watching a movie unfold in front of you, right?
right.
And I always thought that that was great. And then there came a time where I was like, where somebody, so I'm a huge Disney nerd.
Uh huh.
And I think Final Fantasy is really cool. And so somebody was like, oh, there's this video game that uh where there's like Final Fantasy characters, but they're like, they go through Disney worlds. And I was like, say no more. Going out and buying a PS4, buying the
That did it.
ultimate collection. I was like, Kingdom Hearts, let's go.
Yeah,
And, like, as a kid, we had an NES and we played Super Mario Brothers 3, but it was never like the escape. It never was like, oh, I'm gonna get good at this. Like, I just wasn't. I have a
right.
terrible depth perception. I don't know my right from my left. It's I've learned recently that it's like a hippocampus. And correct me, please correct me.
Oh boy,
It's
I'm
a
on the spot here.
hippocampus. It's a hippocampus issue where you just like never connect right and left appropriately. And
Okay.
sometimes it affects people with up and down. Does that make sense?
It probably does.
Okay.
I'm gonna crack open the resources after
I
this.
want to know later. Yeah,
Yeah,
tell
and
me more.
but I trust you. Trust you on that one.
Okay. So that's what I've been told by, like, I learned this in college in a biology class. They're like,
Yeah.
there's right and right left dyslexia. And I was like, oh, it all makes sense.
Right.
So point is, video games were always super hard for me. And so and then I don't have a lot of just like experience playing them, right? Like my
Sure.
husband does. So it was always tough. And then I played through Kingdom Hearts and I was like, the story just grabbed me. Their mental health themes. I learned so much. Again, I'm a huge Disney buff, so
Right.
like that got me. And so at the end of the day, I was like, I want to do more of this, but suck less at it. And that only comes from practice and a lot of frustration and learning. And video games are they're a leisure activity, right?
Right.
So it means you have to have time to dedicate, but then when you have time to hang out and do a leisure activity, do you really want to be sweating and being like, I don't know how buttons work,
That's so true.
So it's been a very slow learning process for me, but that's how at the end of 2020 I came up with Will You Carry Me?
Love it.
The show where somebody can teach me video games. And basically, like, I still get to incorporate mental health, I still get to talk to people, but I also, it's talking to them in their own element, and that helps them a lot
Yeah.
because they're like distracted, but also, yeah, like my husband will say, like, give me a topic, you know like, and I can riff on that, and so you'll just be like, yeah, I'm gonna ask you a question about your childhood, and you're like, yeah, okay, well, I'm playing, I can tell you about my childhood, and
Right.
we're off to the races.
Right.
And so I've learned how to play Fortnite so far. I am going to be
Yes.
playing Grounded with Rocco, the cat sock puppet.
Oh,
I
of
am going.
course. Who
I'm really
else?
really excited. And then this week on Friday, I'm playing Monstera, which is like a super spooky game.
Oh
I don't play
man.
spooky games, but it's
I
like my
think
really
M
good friend is
playing a
talking me
spooky
through it.
game just based on this conversation, that's going to be a lot of fun to watch. Maybe not
It's
fun for you. It's
right.
going to be fun for me.
I know that's exactly. And I'm like, it ends up being a cycle of me being like, this isn't fun for me, but people are getting a kick out of it, so now it's
Right.
fun for me and it's worth it. And yeah, so I get it. I get excited about doing that kind of stuff. But yeah, so that's where games are for me. Like,
Yeah.
love Animal Crossing. I love Stardew Valley, where like the entry is super mellow and you can just get it. And if I am, I'm having a hard time with WASD. Like, I literally have to see the key for me to press it because I
Like
can't
my dad using a
spatially.
computer.
Well, like, I can type really fast
Right.
because I'm a writer, but like spatially, I can't comprehend that D will bring you to the right. Like, I
Okay.
need to,
Okay.
like, it has to connect to me. Like, I have to literally be like, if I press D, I go in that direction. Like, it's not
Right.
a,
Right. It's not
I don't know. I don't
connecting.
know.
It's not
It's not
it's the
connecting.
hippocampus. It's all the
It's,
hippocampus.
man, it's
That
the
damn hippo.
hippocampus is the hippo butt. Yeah, there you go.
Hippocampus is a hippo butt. That's the clip. That's what we're using. That's the promo for this episode.
That's medical terminology, by
A
the way.
hundred
Hippo
percent.
butt.
The hippo butt. The hippo butt.
Everybody, yeah. uh,
Before I ask my next question, I want to invite the chat. As we start to close down the show, if anyone has any questions for M, now is a good time to ask your question. Um, so yeah, I mean, what you made me think of is something that has come up actually in my interviews a lot. I did an interview with Dave Kraus, who's a veteran of the military and works at Stack Up, a military charity in the gaming world. And he said the same thing in the context of mental health for military members and for veterans, is that it's kind of tough to get this population to share. But when you pass around the controller and you all sit in front of the TV or you all have your headsets on or playing, remotely, um, there's inhibitions sort of, everyone gets wacky and silly and the
mhm.
filter system kind of dissipates when you're playing video games. And that ends up being a really interesting way to talk about problems and health and mental health. And I know a couple different therapists who, with their patients, will even play games during their
Yeah,
sessions.
geek therapy is a whole section now. It's really cool.
Yeah, and there's really something to that distraction, but also, just I don't know what it is. I'm curious to learn more about it, but that kind of I get that sense that that's maybe what you experience as well.
Yeah, that no, that's it. That's how I get people are in their comfort zone, and
Right.
while they're comfy and squishy, they are
Squishy.
more likely to share because it I don't know. I don't know exactly like the what happens in the brain that makes you do that, but
Yeah,
I'm doing something with my hands, and so my mind is free to wander, and
that's
I
right.
might as well have it wander on on this topic.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
So, the question I like to end with here in Digital Doc Games, I like to play impactful games or meaningful games. So, Em, you've listed a couple, but if you had to choose a winner of the game that you've played, recently, a while ago, whenever it was, that has just hit you in the right spot. It's given you the feels. It's made you emotional, but it's had an impact on you. What game would you say that would be?
Oh, it's 100%. Oh, can you see it? Yeah, it's 100% Kingdom Hearts.
Okay,
it's
it's that Disney
that
connection.
it's the Disney connection, but it's also there's a lot of themes of like friendship, not forcing yourself into isolation, seeing darkness within yourself and fighting it actively,
Right.
not letting it consume you. There's a lot of like really great metaphors and themes in there that don't hit you over the head unless you're looking for them. And then I feel like they're super obvious. Like one of the characters in one of the games literally wanders through darkness for 10 years while she hears voices telling her she's terrible and her friends don't love her and
Wow.
don't want to be around her. And I'm like, that's hitting me over the head with like, that's what depression is like. But
Right.
I bet for everybody else, it's like, oh, this is like cool and mysterious and an interesting riddle to solve. And I'm like, yo, she's depressed.
Yeah. Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
but yes,
And
Kingdom
games,
Hearts, the whole series.
I love it. I love it. I'm gonna have to dive into that a little bit. I know there's been like on Take This. Actually, Em, did you write it? Now that I think of it, there's like a
Yes.
review. Okay, you
Yes, I
did.
did.
You did. So there's like
Oh,
a
I'm so glad you've seen it. That's so cool. Even
yeah,
if you don't
yeah,
remember my name, I'm just glad that you know that it's out there.
yeah.
Yep, on
No,
Take
it's
This,
great.
there's
I
an
was just
article.
reading it like a couple weeks ago, but I didn't put it together that you wrote it. Okay.
Yeah. I've written two pieces on it. One, so this was before Kingdom Hearts 3 came out, and there is a character. Oh man, if you haven't played it, I don't want to ruin it. But there's a character that turns evil.
Okay.
And I basically, in one of my essays, I explain, like, yeah, she's going to go to the evil side because she's like suicidal and nobody's helping her.
Yeah.
Like, this is her coping mechanism.
Right. Right.
Uh,
It's such
so,
an interesting thing to dive into these
yeah.
stories. I mean, yeah, that's my favorite thing about games is the story and the connections you make with these characters and what resonates inside of you. That you relate to these characters. So, okay, Kingdom Hearts. That's on the list now. That's on the
Oh my
list.
gosh, so hard. Yeah, I have a big Kingdom Hearts heart in my yeah.
You have a big Kingdom Heart.
There you go. There you go. Sure.
I love it. Well, Em, thank you so much. It's been so fascinating, really, just to talk to you, uh, following your journey, being in your streams, hearing you just open the book, normalize the conversation around mental health. I hope to watch you continue to do that, not only on the individual side, but on the healthcare side, on the system side. I think you are doing all the right things to institute important change. So thank you for
Thank you
being
so
there.
much. Holy moly. Ooh, thank you.
Thank you for coming on this show. Em, if people, some of your links are listed below you. I don't even know what the stream is doing at this point. If we're still running, maybe this is just a conversation with me and you. I don't even know. But
Sure it is.
okay, Players vs. Cancer says great conversation. So at least they
Okay,
heard
good.
us.
So
At
somebody
least they
heard
heard
us.
us. That's
Okay.
right. Well, some of your links are there, but if people want to dive into your stream, dive into your blog, what's the best way for them to follow you and do all that?
So if you want to find me, go to Mxiety on all the things,
Okay.
right? So I have a blog, I've written a book that is a compilation of all my blog posts. So if you're like, oh, I don't want to read all these separately, there's a book and I put them in the order I wanted you to read them in and stuff. But Yeah, so the way you can find me is Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. We do live talk shows and game, and that starts at 6 p.m. Eastern. If you can't find me there or you don't feel like listening, to live content, I'm also on YouTube. I post all my interviews on YouTube, and also I post a lot of stuff on Twitter. So please come hang out with me on Twitter.
Yes.
You'll get a lot of encouragement, some silliness, some seriousness, but I promise you overall it'll be a good time. So I hope to see you. I hope to see you there, and I hope to see you stop by a show. Thank you, everybody who's watching, listening, and however you may be. Mxiety. God, I hope I spelled it. No,
Mxiety.
I
Gotcha.
I know how to spell my own name. Yeah.
There you go. There you
Um.
go.
Oh my goodness. But yeah. And there's a barking dog. Perfect time for me to
That's
shut
right.
off.
It's time to go walk the dog. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. It's been really, really a pleasure. We will be back on Tuesday playing some more impactful games at 2 p.m. EST. I would look forward to seeing you there. Thank you to all the new members of the care team that followed today here on Twitch. Make sure to head over to youtube.com/digital.games and follow there as well, where this interview will go up in some form, whether it be video or audio only, as well as your podcasts. Until then, guys, enjoy the rest of the day. Weekend is getting close, so we're almost there. And game on. Thanks so much for coming to the show.